A disaster is looming. A fabulous city, rich in culture and technological advances, is about to be destroyed. Buildings, people, an entire civilization swept away by an overwhelming natural disaster. For this is Atlantis, the ancient land that, legend has it, was sunk beneath the waves by a massive cataclysm 11,000 years ago. The story has entranced scientists and scholars for centuries. This program sets out to see if it can separate fact from fiction in the enduring legend of Atlantis. Atlantis is one of the most fascinating of all historical mysteries. Stories about the disappearance of this legendary island city have echoed down the centuries. It was first written about by the Greek philosopher Plato over 2,000 years ago. But is the drowned city of Atlantis just a myth, or is the legend based on a civilization that really did exist? And why are so many people so keen to believe in it?
It's like a perfect place, a Garden of Eden, the quintessential society.
It did exist, and I think it's still there.
It seemed like it was a very advanced society, and that they had a lot of technology.
It's heavenly and pretty and resort-like.
If Atlantis did exist, where is it? This investigation travels the globe in search of the lost world and explores 4 possible sites for its watery grave. The first is the shattered fragments of a Mediterranean island that 3,600 years ago was blown to pieces by a shattering volcanic eruption. Standing here are the remains of a civilization that built the most ancient temple structures in the world before mysteriously vanishing. The journey continues to the Caribbean to examine strange underwater formations recently discovered off the coasts of Cuba and the Bahamas. Along the way, we meet optimistic amateurs who believe they have found the lost city, and some serious researchers studying genuine archaeological mysteries. But first, the focus must go back to the very beginning and the source of the legend. The story of Atlantis dates back to 350 BC and the writings of the ancient Greek philosopher Plato. Of all the writers of classical Greece, it is only Plato who mentions Atlantis, and he gives the key clue for this search. He wrote that the island of Atlantis was annihilated by a massive destructive event, and in a single day and night, it disappeared into the sea. It's a great story, but before this quest gets underway, it's essential to know, is it really possible? Could a whole civilization be annihilated by a single catastrophic event, and within hours? At first, it seems unlikely. The destructive forces of nature that this planet has experienced in recent times don't appear to be that big. In 1994, the Northridge earthquake shattered parts of Los Angeles, and in 2004, Hurricanes Charlie, Ivan and Francis battered Florida. But they fell far short of totally annihilating these places. However, look back over a longer timescale, and the Earth is suddenly revealed as a truly explosive and violent place. Tsunamis have obliterated whole coastlines, and earthquakes have reduced towns and even cities to rubble. Volcanoes can explode with the force of nuclear bombs, destroying whole cities. The casualty list is impressive. Pompeii, Herculaneum, Krakatoa. So there are plenty of natural phenomena that could have been the basis for Plato's account. A key test for each of the 4 sites will be to show that they were eradicated by a massive cataclysm, early enough to precede Plato's writings. To aid the search and assess the evidence, 2 eminent scientists are called in. Geologist Dr. Robert Schoch of Boston University.
This is very similar to catastrophe stories you see elsewhere around the world, common to many mythologies, common to many religious beliefs, and I suspect has a basis in reality.
And Ken Fader, Professor of Archaeology at Central Connecticut State University.
People have tried to make these connections, and it's been done so often between sites off the coast of Cornwall and sites in the Mediterranean. Saying, that's the story Plato was talking about. That's Atlantis. Even the strongest proponents of those perspectives admit you have to change a lot of elements of the story in order to make it fit.
They have both studied the evidence for Atlantis and compared it to Plato's clues. But if Atlantis is to be found, it's important to know what to look for.
Here, in the middle of our vast ocean, is Atlantis.
Over the years, the image of Atlantis has been colored by the imagination of Hollywood screenwriters.
Atlantis, a world that worshipped strange gods of science, a science gone berserk in the dread house of fear.
For this search, science fiction fantasies must be left behind, and instead, attention turns to Plato's original description. Exactly what clues has the Greek philosopher left? His description of Atlantis runs to around 40,000 words and is peppered with remarkable details. He writes that it was a vast city, laid out in concentric circles of land and water. It was built of red, black and white rocks. The people sacrificed bulls. The land was grazed by elephants, and it existed around 9000 BC. But most important of all, it was destroyed by a catastrophe and sank beneath the waves. If any of the 4 locations is Atlantis, it must match all or at least most of these boxes. The modern-day search for Atlantis owes its origins to one man, Ignatius Donnelly, a 19th century politician and writer.
Plato wrote this little tale about this fictional kingdom. Donnelly ran with it.
Donnelly was intrigued by the similarities between ancient civilizations on both sides of the Atlantic. The pyramids of Central America, he thought, looked remarkably similar to the pyramids of Egypt. Could they have had a common origin? In 1882, he published a best-selling book. He proposed that the great technological advances of the ancient world all came from one earlier civilization, Atlantis. He argued that when Atlantis was destroyed, its survivors spread their knowledge across the globe, passing on the skills to build such diverse wonders as the Egyptian pyramids and the Mayan temples in Mexico.
It's really Donnelly who introduces the whole concept that Atlantis is this mother civilization, this core culture from which everything else in the ancient world derives.
Donnelly's theory sent Atlantis hunters rushing to the 4 corners of the earth. The story of the mythical civilization even attracted the attention of Adolf Hitler and the Nazis. They became so entranced with the legend that they started to include it as part of their own myth of an Aryan master race. In one of the weirdest episodes of World War II, the Nazis began searching for Atlantis. The focus of their attention? A small island in the Mediterranean Sea.